My name is Dahlia, 34 years old, and until last month I was the marketing director at Prestige Tech. I never expected that an emergency appendectomy would completely change my career trajectory. When my boss fired me by text while I was still hooked to hospital monitors, I was devastated. What he didn't know was that the man in the bed next to mine was Jason Reynolds, CEO of our biggest competitor, Digisphere. Before I tell you how I went from fired to hired in less than 24 hours, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever faced workplace injustice. I started at Prestige Tech 7 years ago as a junior marketing associate. Back then, the company was still finding its footing in the software industry, trying to carve out a niche in business management solutions. I was fresh out of my MBA program, eager to prove myself and make a difference. Little did I know that my dedication would lead to both incredible professional growth and eventually one of the most painful betrayals of my career. Over those 7 years, I worked my way up from junior associate to marketing coordinator, then to marketing manager, and finally to marketing director. Each promotion came after I had significantly exceeded expectations. The jump to director happened after I conceptualized and executed the Business Unleashed campaign that increased our client base by 38% in just 1 quarter. The board of directors personally commended me, though my immediate boss, Richard Parker, was quick to position himself front and center during the celebration. Richard was the kind of supervisor who maintained his position through intimidation rather than inspiration. He was a tall, imposing man with a perpetual frown who had been with the company since its founding days. While he might have once been innovative by the time I worked under him, he was primarily concerned with maintaining status quo and taking credit for his team's successes. Any failures, however, were quickly attributed to his subordinates. Despite this challenging dynamic, I poured myself into my work. I regularly stayed until 9 or 10 at night, working on campaigns and strategies. I canceled vacations when emergencies arose. I missed my sister's baby shower to handle a PR crisis. I postponed doctor appointments to finish presentations. Prestige Tech wasn't just my employer, it had become my identity. The software industry is intensely competitive, with companies constantly trying to outmaneuver each other with new features, better interfaces, and more effective marketing. Our biggest rival was Digisphere, a company that had started around the same time as Prestige Tech, but had grown slightly faster and secured more venture capital. Their CEO, Jason Reynolds, was something of a wonderkind in the industry, having founded the company at just 26. Now in his early 40s, he had a reputation for being brilliant, but also surprisingly down-to-earth compared to other tech executives. The rivalry between our companies was fierce but professional. We competed for the same clients, poached each other's employees occasionally, and were always trying to beat each other to market with new features. I had never personally met anyone from Digisphere's executive team, though I had analyzed their marketing strategies extensively as part of my job. The week before everything changed, I had been working around the clock on our new product launch. Prestige Tech was releasing an AI-enhanced version of our flagship software, and as marketing director, I was responsible for making sure the rollout generated maximum buzz and conversions. I had been experiencing some abdominal pain for a few days, but dismissed it as stress, or perhaps food poisoning from the takeout I'd been subsisting on. By Wednesday, the pain had localized to my lower right side, but I still had 3 meetings and a press release to finalize. I took some over-the-counter pain medication and pushed through. Thursday morning, during our all-hands meeting where I was presenting the launch strategy, the pain suddenly became unbearable. I remember stopping mid-sentence, a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. The room started to spin, and the next thing I knew, I was on the floor with concerned colleagues surrounding me. Someone called an ambulance, and I was rushed to Memorial Hospital with what turned out to be a severely inflamed appendix that was in danger of rupturing. The doctor told me later that I was lucky to have gotten there when I did. They prepped me for emergency surgery immediately. My last conscious thought before the anesthesia took effect was worry about the product launch. Not concern for my health or even the surgery I was about to undergo, but anxiety about letting down the company that had been the center of my life for 7 years. That should have been my first clue about how unbalanced my priorities had become. When I woke up in the recovery room, the nurse explained that the surgery had gone well, but they wanted to keep me for at least 3 days due to some inflammation they wanted to monitor. I was groggy and disoriented as they wheeled me to my room, barely registering that I would be sharing it with another patient. All I could think about was that I needed to let Richard know what had happened and make arrangements to work remotely from my hospital bed. I fully came to consciousness around 7 that evening. The room was dimly lit with the privacy curtain drawn between me and my roommate. I could hear the steady beeping of monitors and the occasional rustle of movement from the other bed. My abdomen throbbed with a dull pain despite the medication dripping into my IV. My first coherent action was to reach for my phone, which a nurse had thoughtfully placed on the side table. The screen showed 15 missed calls, 7 voicemails, and over 20 text messages. Most were from colleagues expressing concern after my collapse, but 5 calls and 3 voicemails were from Richard. My heart sank. The product launch was scheduled for the following day, and he was probably furious about my absence. I started to listen to the voicemails, each one progressively more agitated. The first left shortly after I was taken away in the ambulance, demanded to know what had happened. The second, from about 2 hours later, expressed frustration that no one could give him clear information about when I would return to work. The third left that evening was cold and businesslike, informing me that they had to make arrangements to cover my responsibilities. Then I saw the text message he had sent just 30 minutes earlier. My hands trembled as I read it. "You're fired. We've already cleared out your desk. We don't need unreliable employees like you." I read it again, certain I must be misunderstanding due to the lingering effects of anesthesia. But the words remained unchanged on the screen. After 7 years of dedication of missed family events of working until exhaustion, I had been fired by text message while recovering from emergency surgery. The betrayal cut deeper than the surgical incision in my abdomen. Memories flashed through my mind the night I stayed until 4 a.m. to fix a mistake in a presentation that Richard himself had made. The Christmas I spent in the office finalizing year-end reports. The countless weekends sacrificed to ensure campaigns launched flawlessly. All apparently worth nothing when I finally had a legitimate health emergency. I tried calling Richard back, but the call went straight to voicemail. I then tried our HR director, Linda, but got no answer there either. It seemed a decision had been made, and no one was interested in discussing it further. My breathing quickened, and the monitor next to me began beeping more rapidly as my heart rate increased. "Are you okay over there?" a male voice asked from beyond the curtain. I was too distraught to respond immediately. The company had been more than just a job to me. It was where all my friends were. It was my daily routine, my purpose, my professional identity. In the cutthroat software industry, being fired could also mean significant damage to my reputation. And with medical bills looming and no idea how long my recovery would take, the financial implications were terrifying. "Hello, do you need me to call a nurse?" the voice persisted. No, I finally managed my voice cracking. "No, I'm fine." "You don't sound fine," he replied. "I don't mean to intrude, but sometimes talking to a stranger can help. Hospital rooms create a strange kind of intimacy, don't they?" There was something oddly familiar about his voice, but I couldn't place it through my emotional fog. I wiped away tears that had begun streaming down my face. "I just found out I was fired," I said, surprising myself with my candor. "By text message, while recovering from emergency surgery." There was a long pause from the other side of the curtain. "That's appalling," he finally said, his voice tight with what sounded like genuine outrage. "What kind of company does that?" "A software company called Prestige Tech," I replied bitterly, "where I've dedicated the last 7 years of my life." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "Would you mind if I pulled back this curtain? I feel strange having this conversation without seeing you." I hesitated, aware of my disheveled appearance, but then decided it hardly mattered under the circumstances. "Go ahead." The curtain slid back, revealing a man, probably in his early 40s, sitting up in his hospital bed. He was hooked up to an IV like me, his complexion somewhat pale, but his eyes alert and concerned. He had dark hair, slightly mussed from lying in bed, and a few days' worth of stubble on his face. Even in a hospital gown, there was something distinguished about him. And suddenly I realized why he seemed familiar. I had seen his photograph in countless tech publications and on Digisphere's website. I was sharing a hospital room with Jason Reynolds, CEO of our biggest competitor. My shock must have shown on my face because he smiled slightly. I nodded mutely. And you work for Prestige Tech, he continued. Or worked, I should say. May I ask what you did there? I was the marketing director, I replied, still processing this bizarre coincidence. His eyebrows rose. Dahlia Morgan, you're the one behind the Business Unleashed campaign. I was surprised he knew my name. Yes, that's me. Your work is impressive, he said sincerely. We did a complete analysis of that campaign. It was brilliant. Under different circumstances, I might have been flattered by the compliment from a competitor. But at that moment it only intensified my sense of loss and betrayal. I felt tears welling up again and turned away embarrassed. I'm sorry, he said. This must be an incredibly difficult time for you. For what it's worth, I think what they did is not just cruel but foolish. Letting go of talent like yours, especially in such an unprofessional manner. I turned back to him. Can I ask what you're in for hospital, I mean? He patted his side gently. Gallbladder. Not as urgent as appendicitis, but they said it needed to come out sooner rather than later. The joys of aging and stress, I suppose. This surreal situation momentarily distracted me from my own crisis. Here I was, having just been fired from Prestige Tech, lying in a hospital bed next to the CEO of Digisphere. It seemed like some kind of cosmic joke. Would you mind showing me the text? Jason asked suddenly. If it's not too personal, that island, I'm just professionally curious about how a company communicates something like that. I hesitated briefly, then handed him my phone with the message displayed. His face darkened as he read it. This is beyond unprofessional, he said, returning the phone. It's inhumane. Do you mind if I ask who sent this? Richard Parker, VP of Marketing and my direct supervisor. Jason nodded slowly. I've heard of him. Old school. Been with the company since the beginning, right? Yes. He's always been difficult, but I never expected this level of callousness. Some leaders forget that businesses are made of people, not just products and profits, Jason said quietly. I'm truly sorry this happened to you, Dahlia. Hearing my name spoken with such genuine sympathy broke something in me. The full weight of the betrayal crashed down, and I began to sob openly. 7 years of loyalty rewarded with a cold dismissal via text. No consideration for my medical emergency, no recognition of my contributions, not even the basic respect of a phone call or face-to-face meeting. They didn't even wait to hear if I was okay, I managed between sobs. They just threw me away. The realization that I was having an emotional breakdown in front of the CEO of our biggest competitor finally penetrated my distress. I tried to compose myself, wiping away tears with the rough hospital tissue. I'm sorry, I said, embarrassed. This is totally unprofessional. Jason smiled slightly. We're both in hospital gowns hooked up to IVs. I think we can suspend the usual professional decorum. His comment made me laugh despite myself, which then made me wince as the movement pulled at my stitches. Careful there, he cautioned. I made that mistake earlier. Apparently laughing and abdominal surgery don't mix well. There was something disarming about Jason Reynolds in person. In industry publications, he was always portrayed as brilliant and somewhat intense, the driving force behind Digisphere's rapid growth. But here, divested of his CEO attire and trappings, he seemed approachable and genuinely kind. This is so strange, I admitted. If someone had told me yesterday that I'd be sharing a hospital room with you, I would have thought they were crazy. Life has a peculiar sense of humor sometimes, he agreed. Though I'm sorry it came with such difficult circumstances for you. A nurse came in then to check our vitals, momentarily interrupting our conversation. After she left, Jason asked, Have you tried reaching out to anyone else at the company, HR perhaps? I nodded. No response. I think the decision has been made. That seems precipitous even for Richard Parker, Jason commented, especially given your track record. I was surprised again by his knowledge of my work. You seem to know a lot about me. He smiled. Know thy enemy, as they say, though I prefer to think of it as knowing thy worthy opponent. Your marketing strategies have given us a run for our money on several occasions. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of professional pride. We've studied your campaigns closely as well. I'd expect nothing less, he replied. That's what makes competition healthy. It pushes everyone to do better work. We fell into conversation about recent developments in marketing technology, both careful at first not to reveal anything proprietary, but gradually becoming more open as we found common ground. Jason was particularly interested in my thoughts on influencer marketing in the B2B space, an area where Prestige Tech had made significant inroads under my direction. I've always believed that, even in business software, you're still marketing to humans who respond to authentic connections. I explained, momentarily forgetting my personal crisis as I warmed to a topic I was passionate about. Exactly, Jason agreed enthusiastically. That's where so many tech companies go wrong. They forget there's a person making the purchasing decision, not a company. Our conversation was interrupted when my phone pinged with a text notification. My heart raced, hoping perhaps it was Richard or someone from HR saying there had been a mistake. Instead, it was from my colleague Megan. Just heard what happened. This is so wrong. Call me when you can. My face must have fallen because Jason asked bad news. Just confirmation that everyone at the office knows I've been fired, I said quietly. It's really happening. Jason was silent for a moment, then said, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but based on our conversation so far, I think Prestige Tech has made a monumental error in judgment. I appreciated his kindness, but couldn't help feeling the crushing weight of my situation again. Thank you, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm unemployed in a hospital bed with no idea what comes next. True, he acknowledged. But sometimes these forced transitions, painful as they are, can lead to unexpected opportunities. I wasn't ready to see any silver linings yet. Right now, I'm more concerned with how I'll pay these hospital bills without insurance. Jason looked genuinely troubled by this. That's a valid concern. I'm sure you know that Cobra allows you to maintain your employer insurance for a while, though it's not cheap. Assuming they process my termination properly, I said bitterly. Given the text message firing, I'm not optimistic about their handling of administrative details. We were interrupted again by the evening meal delivery. As we both picked at the unappetizing hospital food, Jason shared his own career setback story. My first startup failed spectacularly, he revealed. I was 24, thought I knew everything, and ended up losing not just my own money but that of friends and family who had invested. That must have been difficult, I said. He nodded. One of the lowest points of my life. I felt like I had betrayed everyone who trusted me. It took me almost a year to get back on my feet emotionally. What changed? I asked, genuinely curious. I finally realized that failing doesn't make you a failure, he said simply. It's just an event, not an identity. And sometimes it clears the path for something better. His words resonated with me, though I wasn't ready to fully embrace them yet. We continued talking as evening turned to night, sharing career war stories and industry insights. There was something therapeutic about discussing professional matters with someone who truly understood the landscape, especially without the usual competitive tensions that would normally color such a conversation. At one point, Jason mentioned offhandedly that DigiSphere had been struggling to find the right marketing approach for their newest service offering. Without thinking, I immediately outlined 3 potential strategies they could consider. He looked at me with newfound appreciation. That's actually brilliant. You came up with that just now. I shrugged. It's what I do, or did I guess? As our conversation deepened, I found myself revealing more about my experience at Prestige Tech than I ever would have imagined sharing with a competitor. I told him about campaigns I had conceptualized that were never implemented because they were deemed too innovative by Richard, about the constant struggle to get proper recognition for my team's work, about the gradual shift in company culture from innovation to risk aversion. Jason listened attentively, occasionally asking insightful questions that demonstrated genuine interest rather than competitive intelligence gathering. By the time the night nurse came to check on us and dimmed the lights, suggesting we get some rest, I realized I had spent hours talking with the CEO of DigiSphere as if he were a trusted colleague rather than a business rival. Thank you, I said as we prepared to sleep. For listening. For being kind when you had no obligation to be. Competitors in business doesn't have to mean enemies in life, he replied. Get some rest, Dahlia. Things often look different in the morning. As I drifted off to sleep, still processing the shocking events of the day, I couldn't help but wonder if this strange hospital room encounter was just a bizarre coincidence or something more significant. Either way, I felt marginally better than I had hours earlier when I first read that devastating text message. I woke the next morning to find Jason already awake, tapping away on his tablet. He looked up when he noticed my movement. "Good morning," he said. "How are you feeling?" Physically, the pain had subsided somewhat, but emotionally, the reality of my situation came flooding back. "Been better," I admitted. A nurse came in to check my vitals and change my dressing. After she left, a doctor stopped by to inform me that my recovery was proceeding well, but they wanted to keep me another day to monitor for infection. Jason received similar news about his condition. "Looks like we're roommates for another day," he said after the doctor left. "If you're up for it, I'd love to continue our conversation from last night. Your insights on the evolution of content marketing in SaaS were fascinating." Despite my personal crisis, I found myself eager to engage in the professional discussion. There was something validating about having my expertise recognized, especially after being so callously dismissed by my former employer. As we talked, Jason revealed more about Digisphere's current challenges. "We've always been strong on the technical side, but translating that into compelling marketing narratives has been a struggle. That's been Prestige Tech's advantage," I acknowledged. "We might not always have the most advanced features, but we're good at communicating value." "You're good at communicating value," Jason corrected, "from what I've seen of your campaigns versus the rest of Prestige Tech's marketing." I couldn't help but smile at the compliment. "Thank you. I've always believed that technical superiority means nothing if you can't make people understand why they should care." This launched us into a deeper discussion about the gap between technical capabilities and market perception in the software industry. Jason was particularly interested in my approach to humanizing complex technical concepts. "The problem with most tech marketing," I explained, "is that it focuses on features rather than outcomes. People don't buy software because it has impressive architecture. They buy it because it solves a problem or creates an opportunity." Jason nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. We've been trying to convey this to our marketing team for years, but they keep falling back on technical specifications." As our conversation continued through the morning, two nurses who came to check on us commented on our animated discussion. "You two sound like you're in a board meeting, not recovering from surgery," one of them joked. "Just passing the time," Jason replied with a smile. But I caught him giving me a thoughtful look after the nurse left. Around midday, Jason cautiously brought up my employment situation. "Have you thought about what you'll do next?" The question brought me crashing back to reality. "Not really. It's still sinking in." "I hope you don't mind me asking, but did Prestige Tech ever implement your full vision for their marketing strategy?" I sighed. I was always fighting for more innovative approaches. Richard preferred tried and tested methods, even when they were delivering diminishing returns. "That must have been frustrating," Jason observed. "Extremely. I had developed a comprehensive strategy for vertical-specific content marketing that would have positioned us as thought leaders in key industries, but Richard thought it was too resource-intensive." Vertical-specific content, Jason looked intrigued, like tailored approaches for healthcare versus finance clients. "Exactly. With industry-specific case studies, white papers, webinars, the works, all designed to speak directly to the unique challenges of each sector." Jason was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Would you mind elaborating on how you would implement something like that?" Without thinking too much about it, I outlined my vision in detail, explaining how I would segment the market, develop content pillars for each vertical, create thought leadership positions, and measure success. It was the strategy I had been trying to get approved at Prestige Tech for over a year. When I finished, Jason was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "That's remarkable," he said finally. "It's exactly what Digisphere needs." His words hung in the air between us, laden with unspoken possibilities. I suddenly realized I had just shared a detailed marketing strategy with the CEO of a competing company. But strangely, I didn't regret it. In fact, it felt liberating to have my ideas truly heard and appreciated. "Dahlia," Jason said carefully, "I hope this isn't inappropriate given the circumstances, but I have to ask, would you ever consider bringing that vision to life at Digisphere?" The question caught me off guard. "Are you Offering me a job? I'm exploring the possibility, he replied diplomatically. We've been searching for a new marketing director for 3 months. Based on your work at Prestige Tech and everything you've shared with me here, you might be exactly what we're looking for. I was momentarily speechless. Less than 24 hours after being fired, I was potentially being offered a position at our biggest competitor. I know the timing is unusual. Jason continued, and I understand you'll need time to process everything that's happened. But I'd be remiss not to at least open the conversation. My mind was racing. Working for Digisphere would be a dramatic shift, but also an incredible opportunity. Their resources were greater than Prestige Tech's, and from everything Jason had shared, they seemed more open to innovative marketing approaches. This island. Unexpected, I managed. Jason smiled. The best opportunities often are. And if it helps, I'm not offering this out of pity. I'm offering it because I think you could transform our marketing efforts and help us reach the next level. The validation in his words was like a balm to my wounded professional pride. After being discarded so callously by Prestige Tech, having my value so clearly recognized was powerful. I appreciate that, I said. I really do. But I think I need some time to think about it. Of course, he agreed immediately. There's no rush. Focus on your recovery first. As the day progressed, our conversation naturally returned to industry topics, but with a new undercurrent of possibility. Jason shared more details about Digisphere's culture, their approach to work-life balance, and their ambitious plans for expansion into international markets. We believe in supporting our employees as whole people, he explained. That includes respecting health needs and personal boundaries. It was a stark contrast to the culture at Prestige Tech, where dedication was measured by willingness to sacrifice personal well-being for company goals. By evening, I found myself asking more specific questions about the marketing director position at Digisphere, what resources would be available, how the team was structured, and what expectations they would have. You'd have considerable autonomy, Jason assured me. We hire experts because we value their expertise, not to micromanage them. The more I learned, the more I realized how undervalued I had been at Prestige Tech. Not just financially, but in terms of creative freedom, professional respect, and organizational support. It was both enlightening and somewhat painful to recognize how much I had accepted as normal in a toxic work environment. As we prepared for our second night as hospital roommates, Jason said something that resonated deeply. Sometimes it takes an unexpected disruption to show us what we truly deserve. I fell asleep that night with a strange mixture of emotions, lingering hurt from the betrayal, anxiety about the future, but also a growing seed of excitement about possibilities I had never considered before. The next morning brought unwelcome news. My former colleague Megan called while Jason was having some tests done. I hate to add to your stress, she began hesitantly, but I thought you should know what's happening here. My stomach tightened. Tell me. Richard is telling everyone you abandoned the product launch, she said, her voice laced with outrage. He's saying you just walked out without proper notice and that's why they had to let you go. That's absurd, I exclaimed. I collapsed during a meeting and was taken away in an ambulance. I know, Megan said soothingly. Everyone who was there knows. But Richard is spinning it for upper management and clients. He's saying you had been showing signs of unreliability for weeks. The injustice of it made my blood boil. That's a complete fabrication. It gets worse, Megan continued reluctantly. He's taken credit for the entire AI software campaign. Presented it to the board yesterday as his brainchild that he managed to salvage after your sudden departure. I felt physically ill, and it had nothing to do with my surgery. 7 years of dedication, and not only had I been discarded, but now my reputation was being deliberately damaged and my work stolen. There's one more thing, Megan added, her voice dropping. They've already posted your position. The job description basically describes someone who will follow established marketing protocols and work harmoniously with leadership. It's clear they want a yes person. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence, trying to process this new level of betrayal. It wasn't enough that they had fired me while I was recovering from emergency surgery. Now they were actively damaging my professional reputation and erasing my contributions. When Jason returned to the room, he immediately noticed my distress. What happened? I hesitated only briefly before sharing what Megan had told me. As I spoke, I could see his expression darkening. That's beyond unprofessional, he said when I finished. It's potentially actionable. Deliberately spreading false information about the circumstances of your departure could constitute defamation. I don't have the energy or resources for a legal battle, I said wearily. Especially not now. Just then, a hospital administrator knocked on our door. She had come to discuss financial arrangements, and the news wasn't good. While my emergency surgery was covered, my insurance status was now unclear due to my termination. There could be significant out-of-pocket costs depending on how Prestige Tech processed my departure. After she left, I felt panic rising. Not only was my professional reputation under attack, but I was now facing potentially devastating medical bills with no income. This just keeps getting worse, I said, fighting back tears. I don't know how I'm going to manage this. Jason was quiet for a moment, then said Digisphere has excellent health coverage. It would take effect immediately upon hiring. I looked at him, realizing the significance of what he was suggesting. You're serious about the job offer? Completely serious, he confirmed. In fact, after our conversations yesterday, I'm even more convinced you're exactly what our marketing department needs. The timing was surreal. Under normal circumstances, I would never consider jumping directly to a competitor. There would be notice periods, non-compete clauses to navigate a careful transition. But Prestige Tech had shattered those normal protocols with their text message termination and subsequent character assassination. What about non-compete agreements, I asked, practical concerns surfacing through my emotional turmoil. Jason smiled slightly. I had our legal team look into your situation last night. Since Prestige Tech terminated you without cause and is already publicly disparaging your professional conduct, any non-compete would be difficult for them to enforce, especially in this state where such agreements are generally viewed skeptically by courts. I was touched that he had already taken steps to explore the possibility. You've really thought this through. I believe in seizing opportunities when they present themselves, he said simply. And I believe you deserve better than what Prestige Tech has done to you. That afternoon I received another blow. The doctor informed me that they wanted to keep me an additional day due to some concerning inflammation around my surgical site. More time in the hospital meant more costs, and more time without resolving my increasingly precarious situation. As the day wore on, Jason and I continued to discuss the potential role at Digisphere in more specific terms. He outlined their current marketing challenges, their goals for the coming year, and the resources that would be available to me. We've been trying to break into the healthcare vertical for the past year, he explained, but our messaging hasn't resonated the way we hoped. Healthcare requires a completely different approach, I said automatically. They're not just looking for efficiency, they need rock-solid security and compliance features with messaging that acknowledges the human impact of their work. Jason nodded appreciatively. See, that insight right there is what we've been missing. As evening approached, Jason received word that he would be discharged the following morning. The realization that our unusual hospital room alliance was coming to an end created an unexpected sense of urgency. Before I leave tomorrow, Jason said I'd like to discuss something concrete about the position at Digisphere if you're open to it. The past 24 hours had given me time to reflect on my options. Going back to Prestige Tech was obviously impossible. Looking for a new position while combating potential negative references would be challenging. And the more I learned about Digisphere, the more I could see myself thriving there. I'm listening, I said. Let's talk about what a marketing director role at Digisphere would actually look like. Jason began sitting up straighter in his hospital bed. Despite the setting, he had transitioned smoothly into his CEO persona. The position would report directly to our Chief Revenue Officer, Eliza Johnston. She's brilliant on the sales side, but recognizes the need for stronger marketing leadership. You'd have a team of 8 initially with budget approval for 3 more hires in the first quarter. I was impressed by the specificity. This wasn't a casual suggestion, but a well-defined opportunity. What about creative control, I asked. After years of having my ideas stifled at Prestige Tech, this was paramount. You'd have significant autonomy, Jason assured me. Of course, initiatives would need to align with overall company strategy, but we hire experts because we value their expertise. You wouldn't be micromanaged. We spent the next hour discussing specifics, budget allocations, team structure, current marketing assets, and areas needing immediate attention. Jason was refreshingly transparent about Digisphere's challenges, particularly their struggle to translate technical superiority into compelling value propositions for non-technical decision-makers. Our product team builds amazing solutions, but we haven't been able to tell their story effectively, he admitted. That's where you would come in. As my physical condition improved, so did my mental clarity about this unexpected opportunity. The more details Jason shared, the more I could envision myself in the role implementing strategies I had long wanted to pursue but had been prevented from at Prestige Tech. What about compensation? I finally asked, broaching the subject that had been hovering in the background. Jason named a figure that was 30% higher than my Prestige Tech salary. I couldn't hide my surprise. That's the market rate for someone with your experience and track record, he said matter-of-factly. Prestige Tech was underpaying you significantly. This was yet another revelation. I had suspected I might be underpaid, but hadn't realized by how much. The healthcare package he outlined was also substantially better than what I had before, with lower deductibles and better coverage. There's one more thing, I said, deciding to be bold. Given my current situation, I would need flexibility to work remotely during my recovery. Absolutely, Jason agreed without hesitation. We have a strong remote work culture already. Your health comes first, and we can ensure you have everything you need to work comfortably from home until you're fully recovered. His immediate accommodation of my needs was another stark contrast to Prestige Tech's culture, where taking sick days was viewed as a lack of commitment. The offer would be contingent on board approval, Jason explained, but I don't anticipate any issues. I've already spoken informally with our chairperson, and she's enthusiastic about the possibility of bringing you on board. I was touched by how much groundwork he had already laid. You've gone to considerable effort for someone you just met. Jason smiled. I recognize talent when I see it, and sometimes the most valuable opportunities come from unexpected places. We discussed timing and next steps. If I accepted, Jason would fast-track the formal offer process. I could potentially start as soon as I was discharged from the hospital, with the understanding that I would initially work reduced hours as I recovered. Take the evening to think about it, Jason suggested. This is a major decision, and I want you to be completely comfortable with it. After our conversation, I used my phone to research DigiSphere more thoroughly. I read employee reviews on job sites, studied their recent press releases, and analyzed their product offerings. Everything I found reinforced what Jason had shared. A company with strong technical foundations but opportunities for growth in marketing and brand positioning. I also received another call from Megan, who informed me that Richard had now instructed the team to remove my name from all marketing materials I had created. It was as if Prestige Tech was trying to erase any evidence of my contributions. This final insult solidified my decision. When Jason returned from a short walk around the hospital floor, part of his recovery protocol, I was ready. I'd like to accept the position, I said firmly. With one condition. Jason raised an eyebrow. Which is? I want to build a marketing team that values both creativity and well-being. No more expectations of sacrificing health for work. He smiled broadly. That's not a condition, Dahlia. That's exactly the kind of culture we strive for at DigiSphere. We spent the rest of the evening outlining my first 90 days in the role. I would begin with a comprehensive audit of their current marketing efforts, followed by the development of the vertical-specific strategy I had long advocated for. Jason took notes on his tablet, occasionally asking clarifying questions or offering insights about internal stakeholders I would need to collaborate with. By the time we finished, it was past midnight, but I felt more energized than I had in months. Despite the pain of my surgery and the betrayal by Prestige Tech, I found myself excited about what lay ahead. I think we make a good team, Jason observed as we prepared to sleep. We're not supposed to be on the same team, I pointed out, smiling slightly. We were competitors yesterday. Life has a strange way of reshuffling the deck sometimes, he replied. I'm glad it dealt you into our hand. As I drifted off to sleep, I reflected on the extraordinary turn of events. 4 days ago, I had been the marketing director at Prestige Tech, believing I was valued and secure in my position. Now I was preparing to join their biggest competitor in a role with greater responsibility, better compensation, and the freedom to implement my vision. The betrayal still hurt, but it had inadvertently opened a door to something that might be far better than what I had lost. 3 months after that fateful hospital stay, I sat in my new office at DigiSphere headquarters, reviewing the quarterly marketing results. The vertical-specific content strategy I had implemented was showing remarkable early success with engagement metrics up 70% and qualified leads increasing by 43% in the healthcare sector alone. My recovery from surgery had gone smoothly, aided by DigiSphere's flexible work policies that allowed me to ease back into full-time work gradually. My new team had welcomed me warmly, eager for fresh leadership and creative direction. The contrast with the toxic environment at Prestige Tech couldn't have been more stark. Jason had been true to his word about autonomy. While we collaborated closely on overall strategy, he trusted me to execute my vision without micromanagement. When I proposed a bold new approach to thought leadership content, the response wasn't skepticism but enthusiastic support and necessary resources. I had recently learned through industry contacts that Prestige Tech's product launch, the one I had been working on when my appendix ruptured, had substantially underperformed projections. Without my guidance, Richard had reverted to outdated marketing tactics that failed to generate excitement in an increasingly competitive marketplace. More satisfying still was the news that Richard had been demoted following a series of marketing missteps. Apparently, erasing my contributions had also erased the strategies that had been working. The board had finally recognized that the department's previous successes had perhaps not been due to his leadership after all. But my greatest satisfaction came not from this professional vindication, but from the personal growth the experience had triggered. The crisis had forced me to recognize how much of myself I had sacrificed for a company that ultimately viewed me as dispensable. At DigiSphere, I had established healthy boundaries from day one. I left the office by 6 most evenings. I took weekends off. I delegated appropriately, rather than trying to shoulder everything myself. And remarkably, these changes hadn't diminished my effectiveness. If anything, I was doing the best work of my career. My health had become a priority too. The appendicitis had been a wake-up call, a physical manifestation of the stress I had been under. Now I had regular checkups, exercised moderately, and actually used my vacation days. The constant exhaustion that I had previously accepted as normal had disappeared. Perhaps most importantly, I had learned crucial lessons about workplace loyalty. I still gave my best to DigiSphere, but I no longer defined my worth by my job. I had rekindled neglected friendships, started dating again, and rediscovered hobbies that had fallen by the wayside during my years of single-minded career focus. One afternoon, I received an unexpected email from Linda, the HR director at Prestige Tech. She was reaching out to apologize for how my termination had been handled, explaining that she had been overruled by Richard and had regretted not standing up for proper protocol. She also mentioned that several of their best marketing team members had left in the months following my departure, citing the toxic culture as their primary reason. I replied graciously, appreciating her apology, but also recognizing that I was exactly where I needed to be. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead us to our best opportunities, though it's nearly impossible to see that when you're in the middle of the crisis. Jason and I had developed a strong professional relationship. Our unusual beginning as hospital roommates had created a foundation of trust that benefited both our working dynamic and the company as a whole. We often joked about the strange circumstances that had brought us together, marveling at how a personal health crisis and a cruel text message had ultimately led to such a positive outcome. "Have you ever thought about what would have happened if we hadn't shared that hospital room?" Jason asked during a strategy meeting. "I probably would have spent months job hunting while fighting Prestige Tech's negative narrative," I admitted. "It might have taken years to recover professionally. And we would have missed out on the best marketing director we've ever had," he added. "Funny how the worst moments sometimes lead to the best opportunities." That was the profound truth I had discovered through this experience. The text message that had devastated me in that hospital bed had actually been the key that unlocked a door to something better, a workplace that valued both my professional contributions and my well-being as a person. I had also learned that sometimes our worst moments reveal who truly supports us and where we actually belong. The betrayal by Prestige Tech had been painful, but it had cleared the path for me to find a professional home where I could truly thrive. As I look back now, I realize that what felt like an ending was actually a beginning. Being fired by text while recovering in the hospital was a terrible experience that I wouldn't wish on anyone. But the growth opportunities and perspective that emerged from that crisis have ultimately made me not just a better professional, but a more balanced and fulfilled person. Life rarely follows the path we expect, and sometimes the most painful detours lead to the most rewarding destinations. The key is to remain open to unexpected possibilities, even in our darkest moments. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led you to something better? Or found an opportunity in what initially seemed like a disaster? Drop a comment below and share your story. And if this tale of workplace redemption resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It helps more people find these stories of resilience and renewal. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes when one door closes brutally via text message, a much better door opens right beside your hospital bed.